seeker of truth who feels a sense of responsibility to spread the truths that I discover to other people.
At the same time as the death rate is going up, the birth rate is plummeting. There are now 2 abortions in Russia for every live birth. It's the lowest birth rate of any country in the world. The upshot, 800,000 more Russians die every year than are born.
If the figures we have for Russia are correct, they face social disintegration.
Dr. Kevorkian, I have known doctors all my life, and there has been, I believe, a tacit agreement among doctors that there are times when they have helped people out of this world who were terminally ill and in great pain. And they didn't say anything about it. It was an understanding they all had. Have you ruined that for them?
I don't think so, but I might have. I don't think I have. I think the legal wrangling over this has helped ruin it more than I have.
I think the American public is puzzled about you. They don't know whether you're a medical philosopher or a nut. Which are you?
Probably both.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer. I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Steve Proft.
I'm Leslie Stahl. Those stories and Ivins and O'Rourke tonight on 60 Minutes.
Sweet mystery of life, at last I found thee. I know at last the secret of it all.
Wow, what a machine.
Oh, yeah. But why did you keep asking me to signal?
Nothing performs quite like it. The V8-powered E420.
This toothbrush is my life. Why'd I have to pick archaeology? My father begged me to be a lawyer.
Hey, it's never too late.
Yeah, right. What about you, man? You ever think about retiring?
Peter, my friend, I am retired.
For people with their own idea of retirement,
I was a lawyer.
Now there's Aetna Retirement Services. We not only give you the tools to build assets, but manage them as well. Build for retirement, manage for life.
Honey, are you okay?
Yeah, relax. It's not broken.
Does it hurt?
No, the doctor gave me Tylenol. Extra strength.
Tylenol, the hospital's choice for pain.
And it's working great, Matt. The car, on the other hand.
Why didn't you see a doctor sooner? Dad's stomach was always bothering him. But the doctor had good news. The doctor said Mylanta.
For heartburn and acid indigestion, doctors recommend Mylanta most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
The patron saint of the far-right militia movement in America is an improbably affable former physics professor by the name of William Pierce. His bizarre and bigoted novel, The Turner Diaries, hits mainline bookstores across America tomorrow morning. It's the imaginary diary of a revolutionary foot soldier named Earl Turner, caught up in the middle of a race war set here in America in the 1990s. Pierce first published the book himself in the underground press back in 1978 under the pseudonym Andrew MacDonald. Since then, it has sold almost 200,000 copies and has become, in a sense, the Bible of far-right militiamen like Timothy McVeigh, who is now awaiting trial for the Oklahoma City bombing. A week ago, I visited William Pierce at his mountain headquarters in rural West Virginia, where we talked in fairly straightforward fashion about his recipe for getting back the America he believes we've lost.
And basically, the idea is we need a white America. Let's get rid of all the blacks. Let's get rid of all the Jews, and we will find ourselves once again. That's basically it.
That's one way, a very crude way of expressing it. I think a more fundamental idea that I expressed in the Turner Diaries is that we need to be responsible for the world around us. We need to stop being just spectators and become participants in the historical process. And if we don't like what we see in the world around us,
get rid of it.
Well, do something about it.
Oh, sure, blow up the FBI headquarters.
Well, that was one of the one of the chapters in the Turner Diaries. There was a civil war going on.
It was indeed. Not unlike the Oklahoma City bombing of a year ago. Pierce, way back in 1978, told of a fertilizer truck bomb driven by white militiamen into the underground parking garage at FBI headquarters in Washington. The result, in the book, was much the same as in Oklahoma City.
When you first saw those pictures, and you knew what you had written about the FBI headquarters being blown, and you knew when you learned that Timothy McVeigh was a devotee of the Turner Diaries, did you then say to yourself, hey, I wonder if I could have been responsible for some of that?
No, I never did, but I said to myself, I wonder what Bill Clinton and Janet Reno are thinking. I wonder if they have any sense of shame, any sense of guilt at all for having committed that massacre in Waco, which apparently is what inspired the bombing in Oklahoma City.
He refers, of course, to the FBI attack on the Branch Davidian compound near Waco, Texas.
We are now in a process of destruction, self-destruction in the United States?
In a process of disintegration, of self-destruction. And it's not just me and people around me who feel this. There's a general feeling of this throughout the society, a feeling that things are coming apart, a feeling that the center cannot hold.
As we said, Dr. William Pierce, here with his young Hungarian wife, is a former physics professor. He taught at Oregon State University. His organization, the National Alliance, publishes pamphlets and books and broadcasts a radio show, all run out of this two-story steel building in a remote part of West Virginia.
What's the meaning with that character?
The meaning of that character is life, creation, birth, renewal.
The central message of his novel, The Turner Diaries, indeed his own abiding conviction, is that the United States is being ruined by blacks, Hispanics, Jews, just about everyone but those he calls his people, Aryan whites.
The breakdown of our society, you blame basically, mainly, on blacks and Jews.
No, not primarily. I blame it on the fact that we have allowed this society to become excessively cosmopolitan, that we have not had real white leadership in this country.
That's the buzzword. That's the code word, cosmopolitan. That's Jews and blacks, and you know it is.
Well, if you want to put it that way, but it involves a lot of other people, too. It involves the mestizos coming across our southern border.
Race mixing.
Race mixing is one of the things which is causing the breakdown of American society and the alienation of the people generally.
I see.
Morris Dees first read the Turner Diaries back in 1981. Dees runs the Southern Poverty Law Center, a group which monitors hate crimes and the people who commit them.
When you first heard the details of the Oklahoma City bombing, did you immediately think of the Turner Diaries?
Within 5 minutes.
Do you have any hard knowledge that indeed Timothy McVeigh read the Turner Diaries?
Yes, Timothy McVeigh treated the Turner Diaries as his Bible. Soldiers in the military with him said that he had it, he read it, he encouraged them to read it, and one even said he slept with it under his pillow.
Dees believes McVeigh is not the first person to be inspired by the Turner Diaries. He says several other bombings and shootings can be tied to the book, which he says is required reading for racist militias. Dees recently wrote a letter to the owners of major bookstore chains asking them not to sell the book.
They should understand what the book is, because they not only have the right of free speech, but they have the right not to speak or not to publish. If the title for this book was, and this is what the book is, the most efficient and effective way to have genocide of Jews and blacks in America, it's doubtful that mainstream bookstores would have the book available.
The man who was undertaken to republish the book is himself a Jew, Lyle Stewart, who has made a career of publishing controversial books like The Anarchist Cookbook, which contains, among other things, recipes for homemade bombs. He says he's publishing Pierce's book as a warning to America.
And you are alerting America in this book about what, Mr. Stewart? It seems to me that America knows that we read all the time about militias. We certainly know about what happened out in Oklahoma City.
Yes. Okay. Most Americans think that Oklahoma City bombing was done by 2 or 3 or how many crackpots. Most Americans believe that the militia are groups of people who love duck hunting, deer hunting, beer drinking. And the thing is that most Americans don't realize that these people want to kill all the public officials. And they want to do it now.
Pierce and Stewart make an odd couple. They don't agree on much.
Tell me something. Why did you go to a Jewish individual, Lyle Stewart, to publish this book?
Actually, Lyle Stewart came to us.
No, he came to me.
One thing they do agree on is that the book will probably sell very well. Stewart says there are already so many orders that he's increased his first printing from 50,000 to 60,000 copies. During our time together, Pierce expressed sympathy for such as the Freemen in Jordan, Montana, and the alleged Unabomber. He says Bill Clinton disgusts him and that he favors shipping American blacks back to Africa. The man William Pierce most admires is Adolf Hitler. He keeps 2 original copies of Mein Kampf right over his shoulder in his office.
Are you, in any sense, a neo-Nazi?
I don't use that term to refer to myself. It's one of those terms like fascist or commie, which means...
You have acknowledged to me that you rather admire Adolf Hitler and the things that he did for his own country.
Yes, I did admire many things that Hitler wrote, many of the programs and policies that he instituted in Germany. But we do not blindly copy anyone else's policies or programs. We've formulated our own program in view of the situation that we face here in America today.
All his views, his notions, are elaborated on in the Turner Diaries. Perhaps the most bizarre chapter in the book tells of the Day of the Rope. That's the day when white traitors are strung up by the revolutionary militias.
The people who were executed on the Day of the Rope were all white people. They were people who had betrayed their race.
Hung from trees, hung from lampposts, hung from stop signs, I mean, there was a whole carnival of hanging.
Right. It was a day of mass hanging.
Mm-hmm. You thought that up?
Yes, I thought up everything that was in the book.
And you seem to enjoy describing it.
Well, it was, writing adventure stories is a congenial occupation for me.
You refer often in the book, in the novel, to blacks as rapists, thugs, dumb, cannibals. An excerpt. We also found gruesome evidence of one way in which blacks have solved their food shortage, cannibalism. They began by setting up barricades in one main street to stop cars driven by whites. The unfortunate whites were dragged from their cars, taken into a nearby restaurant, butchered, cooked, and eaten.
I was envisioning the breakdown of society as a culmination of the trends that I could see in the 1970s.
Well, the only people, however, upon whom you heap scorn and hatred and contempt and disgust are the blacks, the Jews, and those whites who defile themselves by taking up the cause of the blacks and the Jews, by race mixing, or by turning traitor to the white race.
You know, Mr. Wallace, you talk about hatred, and sometimes it's true. I do feel hatred rising in me when I contemplate what is happening to my people. But I try to control that. I try to force it back down. I try to keep my mind clear so that I can think and act effectively.
I am trying to make head or tail of you as I sit. I'm trying to understand Dr. William Pierce. Attractive, interesting, well-educated, crackpot, nutcase.
Well, I really don't think that I'm a crackpot or a nutcase. I think that I am a seeker of truth who feels a sense of responsibility to spread the truths that I discover to other people.
Is William Pierce crazy?
I wouldn't think William Pierce is crazy at all. Maybe crazy like a fox, because he is probably indirectly responsible through his book for the worst American domestic terrorism tragedy in our history. If Timothy McVeigh is guilty, the method he chose to blow the building up is a carbon copy, almost down to the amount of ammonium nitrate used in the truck bomb that was used in the example of the bombing in the Turner Diaries.
Whoever it was who bombed in Oklahoma City, bombed that building, do you believe that he did the right thing?
No, I don't. I've said that over and over again, that I do not approve of the Oklahoma City bombing.
Why not?
It does not make sense under the present conditions that we have, when there's no group capable of actually taking on the federal government and defeating it.
In other words, if you're going to bomb the Oklahoma City building, let's get a bigger infrastructure going so that the job can be done and then followed up.
Now, you said that, not I. But I do not believe that we are in a revolutionary phase yet. I believe that the people have a lot of waking up and understanding to do first. And perhaps if the people do wake up and understand what's happening and decide to take a hand to halt this process, to change the course of history, we may be able to avoid the sort of unpleasantness that I imagined might take place in the Turner Diaries.
A footnote. Publisher Lyle Stewart told us that he intends to donate $1 for every copy of the Turner Diaries that he sells to the Jim Brady Handgun Control Group. But Sarah Brady, wife of the former Reagan press secretary, told us that not only has she not heard from Mr. Stewart, but that she would not accept a dime from the sale of the book because, quote, any revenue reaped from its publication would be nothing short of blood money.
In a review of competitive luxury cars conducted by Consumers Digest, Lincoln Town Car was found in a familiar position. On a pedestal, honored as a Best Buy. In awarding this distinction, the reviewers singled out Town Car's smooth, quiet ride, generous room, luxury features, and comfort. And in a competition where value reigned supreme, Town Car ended up exactly where it belongs. Lincoln, what a luxury car should be.
Never had things exactly my way. My childhood, my parents planned that. Then came the kids and the house. Retirement? I'll call it freedom. To be that kid that still wants to play. But I have to make sure the money will last.
Take control of your future. A plan from Merrill Lynch can show you how. And a Merrill Lynch financial consultant has more ways to make the plan work for you than anyone else. The difference is planning. The difference is Merrill Lynch.
Maybe it's because their frames are welded instead of bolted. Or because their decks are stamped from a single piece of steel. Or maybe it's the fact that they have the highest resale value in the industry.
Oh, hey, I always wanted one of these. Thanks.
But the truth is, when people are asked what kind of lawn tractor they'd like as a gift,
Happy birthday, Dad.
most say the same thing.
So, Al, the owners are gone for 2 weeks?
Yeah, and this lazy boy sofa is sweet.
Hey, I found the remote.
No, seen it. Skip it.
Wait, go back. Look, Lazy Boy. When you call Lazy Boy at 1-800-MAKE-A-HOME, we'll send you a decorating guide absolutely free.
Wow!
It has expert tips on matching patterns and fabrics and color coordinating the rooms that make your home.
Go for it.
Call 1-800-MAKE-A-HOME now.
Hello,
Hello, Lazy Boy.
Before Waco.
They're coming after us.
Before the Freeman standoff. There was Randy and Vicky Weaver.
Try to kill us off one at a time so they can bury the evidence.
On the remote hillside, a mother is shot while holding her baby. How could it happen? Critics give Ruby Ridge top marks. Randy Quaid is impeccable. Laura Dern, hypnotic. An outstanding cast.
That's my daughter up there. She's no killer.
Best of May. Television you just can't turn away from. Ruby Ridge, CBS tonight.
Almost unnoticed amid all the talk of the upcoming elections in Russia, of President Yeltsin battling to keep the communists from returning to power, Almost unnoticed is the startling fact that Russia is confronting a human tragedy of immense proportions. Over the past 7 years, the lifespan of the average Russian man has plummeted from 65 to 58. It's a drop in life expectancy that many experts say is unparalleled in history. And the worst-case prediction of some medical experts is that if nothing drastic is done, the average lifespan of Russian men will decline even further, from 58 to 53 years of age, just below the level of Ghana.
Down to 53, let's say, by the year 2005.
Is there any parallel with this?
No.
Anywhere?
No, not certainly in any developed country. And we're not talking about...
Murray Feshbach is an American professor from Georgetown University who's been collecting and analyzing that kind of worrisome information from Russia for the past quarter century. Now more than ever, his warnings are being listened to by officials in Washington, in Western European capitals, and in Moscow itself, where CBS News correspondent Tom Fenton caught up with him.
37-0 in 85.
Feshbach had come to Moscow to meet with some of the top Russian medical experts he'd been working with. As he sees it, the drastic fall in the lifespan of Russian men could have far-reaching effects on the entire country.
I think it undercuts all of their programs. If it continues this bad, as I expect it will for a while, it puts in danger their economic reform, political reform, if everybody is dead. Now, not everybody is dead, but their conditions are not very good. I don't think it'll improve much in the next 10 years, and that's very serious.
Worse, at the same time as the death rate is going up, the birth rate is plummeting. Previously packed maternity wards are now half empty. Traditionally, Russian women have been obliged to resort to abortions as a means of birth control. Well, there are now 2 abortions in Russia for every live birth. It's the lowest birth rate of any country in the world. The upshot, 800,000 more Russians die every year than are born.
UNICEF in 1993 wrote in public, and it's an international agency, if the figures we have for Russia are correct, they face social disintegration.
American doctor Stanley Tillinghast is part of a U.S.-backed medical aid mission to Russia. The reason for the plummeting birth rate, he says, is more psychological than medical.
Their outlook for the future is very poor. That's part of the reason why the birth rate is so low. I have a friend who's working with me here in Tver who has a 9-year-old boy. He was born during the early days of perestroika and tells me all of my friends have children about the same age. They were the children of hope who were born during these early stages when people were still very optimistic.
And he's had no children since then.
And he's had none since, right?
But it's more than just psychology at play here, for not only is the birth rate of Russians declining, but only 1 in 4 of Russian children who are born are healthy. And if the trend continues, by the end of the century, only about 1 in 10 will be in good health. Even more serious is the steadily increasing number of infants born with physical or mental defects. We met some of them at an orphanage for such children outside of Moscow. The majority of the children had been cast off by their parents, considered too great a burden on the family.
Is there any chance that some of these children would be adopted?
They won't be adopted. No chance.
One doctor told us she thinks there's so many more defective children now because, as she put it, the society itself is sick. In some of the worst areas of industrial pollution, new figures show that 40% of the children are born mentally impaired.
That's devastating. That's a huge figure.
It's worse than I even knew. And I must say, I've been prepared for many awful things, but not that figure.
There's a host of suspect causes for all these appalling statistics. Heading the list, the rampant consumption of alcohol, which has now reached epidemic proportions. To quench his sorrows, the average Russian male now guzzles an incredible half a bottle of vodka per day. And remember, that's the average. President Yeltsin himself often seems to set the inebriated national pace from one uninhibited public appearance to the next. Alcohol is blamed for everything from the rising rate of birth defects to the bloody upsurge in traffic accidents, shootings, drownings, wife beatings, and poisonings.
Last year, 46,000 people died of drinking bad alcohol.
The chief surgeon in one hospital we visited estimated that 99% of all the injuries they treated were caused by alcohol.
99%?
99%? Где-то да. В основном все травмы 99%.
Add to alcohol, there's pollution. The Russians have been ruthlessly poisoning their land and water and air for decades. From oil pipelines in the vast Siberian tundra to factories and cars that befoul their towns and cities. Not to mention their reckless disregard of the dangers of nuclear radiation. And if that doesn't do it, the Russians seem intent on smoking themselves to death. Billions of Western cigarettes are flooding into Russia.
One of the ministers of health said, to live longer, breathe less. So you have to make a choice. You make a choice is you breathe, regardless.
And now comes a dreadful series of communicable diseases like hepatitis, cholera, polio, and rubella. Diseases which have almost disappeared in the United States, but are rampant in Russia. One reason, the fact that 50% of water in the country, including the water in Moscow itself, is polluted.
Half the population is drinking polluted water?
Oh, probably more. It's one of the biggest problems here, and one of the biggest causes of bacterial dysentery, of hepatitis A, and the spread of cholera, and malaria. It goes on and on.
So much so that the threat from Russia is now seen as not only nuclear proliferation, but the proliferation of killer diseases as well, like diphtheria.
The potential for spread of diphtheria to the United States is very high if a number of people come in who have not properly been immunized before. I know the Finns already are questioning Russians at the border very carefully. There are other countries worried about other spreads of other diseases, including tuberculosis. And now there's a big resurrection in the number of cases of polio
This
as well.
is a huge catalog of horrors. They could spread diphtheria. You've got
I'm sorry, that's why
nuclear
people thought I spoke in hyperbole. That is, I couldn't be right about all of this. But unfortunately, I feel I am.
And what about drugs? Well, they too are flourishing with the breakup of the communist system. In these heady days of the fast buck, even many teenagers can now afford a quick fix. Everyone's into the game. Even retired grandmothers supplement their meager pensions by peddling drugs openly on the streets of Moscow.
The drug scene has gotten so bad that they expect now that 1 out of every 6 males, young males, will become a drug addict.
Wait a minute. 1 out of every 6?
Yes. That's their prediction. It's not my prediction.
This is going to be a nation of junkies?
Well, they've got a lot of other problems, too.
AIDS may turn out to be one of the worst. Russian scientists are working on this disease, and the official claim is that the number of AIDS victims is small. But one of the country's top doctors told us that their test for AIDS is just not effective. Once they do get a decent test, they could find themselves in the middle of a major AIDS crisis. Russia's ramshackle health system is in as sorry a state as is the country's health itself. It was already starved under the communists, and that continues under Yeltsin. The war in Chechnya, for instance, consumes far more than Russia's entire health budget. In 1991, the doctors from this Moscow hospital marched to defend Yeltsin against an attempted hardline coup. They'd never do it again, one of them told us.
This is the way public health works, is what we have here.
This hospital uses old plastic water bottles as drip containers. Air sponge rubber serves as a mattress. Paper is stuffed in cracks in the windows to keep out the cold. Wires dangle from electrical installations. This major children's hospital has only 1 respirator for children, and these are among the country's top establishments. But they, at least, have water.
20% of hospitals throughout the country, in fact, don't have any water at all, and 50% did not have any hot water. Now, there's no later figures. This is 5 years ago.
And they call that a hospital?
Yes, by definition, it's a hospital.
Even in the best hospitals, modern drugs are in critically short supply. Most sick people are told to buy their own. This woman told us how for the past 8 months she has had to spend almost all her pension just to buy medicines.
We can't believe what's become of our country. It's worse than the war. President Yeltsin wants more and more. He wants to become president again, and then everything will be destroyed. Only the communists can lead. Under the communists, we were alive, and now we're dying with this kind of democracy. And this is how we live.
We asked this surgeon what happens to most patients if they can't afford drugs.
He can't afford it either.
He himself, he said, makes only $120 a month.
Конечно.
A month?
Месяц. Какой аванс? Месяц.
Of course, a month.
How do you live on $120 a month?
Так и мы живем.
How does the whole country live? We live the same way.
In fact, one survey showed that because of such abysmal salaries, 75% of Russian patients have to resort to bribery.
First, you bribe the proper, best that you can find, professor, doctor, surgeon, to do the surgery for you, and then you pay the nurse on the side because you wanted to change the bedpan, to change the sheets, and you bribe them to pay for the medicines that were prescribed for you.
And they call this free public health.
Well, that's, if you want to call it that, fine. I don't.
This breakdown of the health system reflects the breakdown of Russian society as a whole. The collapse of communism has almost overnight created a tiny minority of Russians who managed to grasp their way, often through graft and corruption, to fabulous wealth. But for the great majority of Russians, life is worse than before. For some, it's abysmally worse, like these people who survive by scavenging in Moscow's rancid garbage dumps, day in and day out.
Are things going to get any better after the next election in June?
Думаю, что нет.
I don't think so.
Why?
Почему? Потому что я не вижу людей, которые могли бы это все сделать.
Because I don't see people who can make life better.
Many leading Russian researchers have been trying to get the attention of the country's top authorities, to increase the health budget, to deal with AIDS, to crack down on pollution, on alcohol. There have been a few changes, but overall, they tell us, no one seems to be listening. Corruption is rampant, and resources keep being poured into the war in Chechnya. Most of the country's health statistics continue to decline.
Is this a country that is dying?
Yes.
It's almost as if it were committing suicide.
Well, I think that's one way of reading all the data. I don't want to read it that way, but the answer is almost yes. But I want, in what I do, and what I'm writing, what I'm working with my Russian colleagues, is, in a sense, to alert people that this is the problem, you better do something about it.
And if they don't?
Well, they'll die. More and more, at younger and younger ages. That's all.
Some people feel the biggest difference between the Regal GS and other sports sedans is the way Regal's refined suspension system holds the road. However, others feel Regal's 36 inches of very generous legroom is something you just have to see to believe. Regal by Buick. The fine line between sport and sedan.
Reminds me of a stomach churning with acid, heartburn. This little pill can change all that. Zantac 75 helps prevent acid production for up to 12 hours. The medicine in Zantac 75 is so trusted that over the last 5 years, it's been the most prescribed medicine of its kind. Maybe the tide is finally turning.
Zantac 75, the final word in acid relief.
At Cigna, we care about people who have babies. We care about companies that make steel and about companies that make bread. We care about life and about all that makes life great or possible or just better. At Cigna, we care because it is our business to care. But we also care because, well, we have babies too. Cigna, a business of caring.
60 Minutes will continue.
It's the ultimate murder, she wrote. Who will live? Who will die?
Something is missing.
Do not miss what will be the end, the final murder, she wrote. Then, recently, Randy Weaver and Bo Greitz tried to negotiate a peaceful end to the Freeman standoff. The two men had met before.
Oh, is that really you?
The place was Ruby Ridge, and for one family, one nation, the stakes were just as high. The story the news couldn't show you. Ruby Ridge, CBS Tonight.
You're on CBS.
It dispenses a product that's accounted for more deaths than both of these things combined. A product that's as hard to kick as heroin and as easy to get as candy. That over 500,000 kids buy every single day. If you see a vending machine or a cashier selling cigarettes to kids, call 1-800-5, ask for ID, and together we'll stop it.
You can project light in any direction, but unless it's focused, you can't see clearly. That's why Infinity employed special projector beam headlights for the J30 to safely focus light where you need it. The J also has dual airbags, ABS, and seatbelt pretensioners, but you're less likely to need them if you see the light.
Now you can lease the Infinity J30 at a very special rate for a limited time.
Unlicensed daycare exposed tomorrow on News 8 at 5.
Dr. Jack Kevorkian has helped end the lives of 28 painfully ill people. He has been tried and acquitted 3 times of assisting suicide, most recently last week. I was sitting in my office minding my own business the other day when the producer of 60 Minutes called and asked if I'd go to Detroit and talk to Dr. Kevorkian. I couldn't figure out why he wanted me to do it. I mean, all I have is a bad cold. Turns out Kevorkian agreed to the interview if I'd ask the questions. So that's what I did. I talked with Dr. Kevorkian and his lawyer, Jeffrey Feiger.
Is there a good way of dying naturally?
I don't know. I think there is. I think most people would pick sudden heart attack and in sleep. Right, they would pick sudden heart attack and sleep. We assume that's the best way to die. Of course, you never know.
You're too young to get in on this conversation, Jeff.
I understand.
I think I'll call you Mr. Feiger, if I may.
You can call me Jeff.
When do you decide that this person probably would be best to go?
Well, actually, the patient decides when it's best to go.
But is he or she a good judge?
Only on what he or she wants. As a medical doctor, it is my duty to evaluate the situation with as much data as I can gather and as much expertise as I have and as much experience as I have to determine whether or not the wish of the patient is medically justified. The two must then coincide, the wish of the patient and the medical justification.
What is the legal aspect to this? Does he tell you what he's going to do?
No, not in advance.
You're just saying that because you don't want to be...
Maybe, but I don't think he's committed any crime. He's just doing something that's right, and everybody instinctively understands it. That's why we're winning. This isn't something that we have to teach people a lot about. They understand that government has no business telling you when you have to, how much you have to suffer before you die.
How do you feel about what the Eskimos do? Is that a good idea?
Well, no, that's brutal.
Putting
older
men and women out on ice floe.
We're doing the same thing by letting them starve and thirst to death in hospitals. The Germans did that in the concentration camps. Our Supreme Court has validated...
That happens in hospitals, you think?
You sure does. It's legal. And the Supreme Court of the United States, our august Supreme Court, has validated the Nazi method of execution in concentration camps, starving them to death.
Now, what are you saying? Please, what are they doing in hospitals that you...
They take away their feeding and water when they're in coma and let them die. I mean, you're validating what the Nazis did in concentration camps.
And but you do not approve of that?
Absolutely not. That's brutal. That is inhumane. Would you approve of that? When you say a person should be allowed to die, inject them quickly and painlessly, not let them wither away and starve to death. That is inconceivable. It's unspeakable. But our Supreme Court has said, that is nice. It's ethical.
Dr. Kevorkian, I have known doctors all my life, and there has been, I believe, a tacit agreement among doctors that there are times when they have helped people out of this world who were terminally ill and in great pain. And they didn't say anything about it. It was an understanding they all had. Have you ruined that for them?
I don't think so, but I might have. I don't think I have. I think the legal wrangling over this has helped ruin it more than I have.
And your legal problems have really inhibited you, in some sense, from doing it absolutely the best way.
That's true. That's absolutely true. They've inhibited. They've taken my license away. They suspended it, made it tough for me to get any drugs. And then when I use gas, they scorn it. Oh, come on.
You're not a great favorite among doctors.
Well, among which doctors?
Not which doctors.
Which? Among which doctors? Among many Catholic doctors? No. Among many Baptist doctors? No. But among doctors in general, I think more than half support what I'm doing.
Are you in any way religious?
I might be, but my religion centers in a different area than what's considered conventional religion.
Anytime anybody starts hedging like that, I realize they're not religious.
Well, no, religion is an internal spiritual world. And I have my own with my God, Johann Sebastian Bach. I mean, why not? You invent gods, that's my God. But at least he's not invented.
If what you do became popular, in other words, if it was accepted legally and ethically, and people in hospitals who were terminally ill and in nursing homes and everywhere else, they died with some help from doctors like you, would this have an effect on the income of doctors and hospitals?
It could. If you let every doctor do it, it could. Just like everything else, you let any doctor do it, and some are going to abuse because you got some crooked doctors out there.
Should they let every doctor do it?
No.
Well, who should do it and who shouldn't?
It should be specified, I don't care by who, not by government preferably, but by the medical profession, who certifies cardiac surgeons.
You mean it should be something that would be a certification, just
Yes.
like being
Yes.
Is that true?
That's a good way to control it.
Where do you stand on capital punishment?
I was neutral, but I will admit, like Socrates and Aristotle and Plato and some other philosophers, that there are instances where the death penalty would seem appropriate.
What about abortion?
Absolutely, woman's choice. I'm for absolute autonomy of the individual, and an adult, mentally competent woman has absolute autonomy. It's her choice.
But is not the fetus a person yet?
Whether the fetus,
no rights.
The fetus is a person or not, the fetus's autonomy, if it exists or not, cannot supersede or equal the autonomy of the mother carrying the fetus.
I think the American public is puzzled about you. They don't know whether you're a medical philosopher or a nut. Which are you?
Probably both. You might say I'm a philosophic nut or a nutty philosopher. It doesn't matter. Words don't mean anything. If you dig into anybody's character, you can find eccentricities that you can characterize as nutty.
You've done some nutty things, though. I saw your picture of you in a pillory in a Thomas Jefferson. Why would you do that?
Well, for example, these are object lessons. Nothing's more powerful than object lessons.
You seem abnormally obsessed with death.
Not at all.
But I've seen some of your art. I've read some of your book. Both your prose and your painting are macabre.
Well, okay, the one on war where you have this body...
Macabre.
With a head on a plate in front of it.
Yeah, I would tend to call that macabre.
What is war? When you look at that, do you get a good feeling? No. You look at it, it's colorful, it's nice, it draws you to it, and then, which we do to war, and then you go through it and then say, God, that was macabre. That's the feeling I'm trying to convey with the painting. You look at that painting, you like looking at it, it's colorful, but you hate what you're looking at.
In view of all these things and how you are viewed by the American public as somewhat of an oddball, do you think that you are the right guy to have represented this cause about which you feel so strongly? Could someone else have done it better?
No. Sure. Maybe. Sure. Where is he? Where is she? Look, they criticize me. You're not the poster child for this. Fine. the reason I'm doing it in a fashion that's not entirely acceptable to everybody is because of the prosecutor and the intimidation. They threaten me with jail. I'm hauled into court. We got to hide things. They come in and confiscate everything in the house. This is the most brutal prosecutorial department
You haven't enjoyed it just a little bit? You look as though sometimes in court you're enjoying.
We enjoy winning.
What looks like enjoyment is the sneer of contempt. That's not a smile.
You're sneering?
Sneering and contempt, right. In this last trial, I had to show contempt, not just say it. I showed it. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Prove it.
Easily.
Prove it. Cite a case on common law of assisted suicide prosecution. Cite it.
Judge, you want to instruct him not to ask questions, speak before he's asked a question?
You can cite me for contempt, Your Honor. I don't care.
Thank you, Judge.
You advised him against being so contemptuous?
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't listen to me, and of course I don't listen to him, so we're equal on that ground.
Now, when you become involved with somebody who is terminally ill, and you agree to help them end their lives, is there a charge you make?
No. No.
No money ever exchanges hands?
No.
He'd be in jail if...
Is that true?
Andy,
yes.
He'd be in jail if that was true.
That, yeah.
He would be in jail.
First of all, a transfer of money should never be involved in this profound situation. Although illness is profound too, but medicine's a business today. It's a business. There's a way to solve it. The doctor who does this must be salaried. Now, what you've done with that, you create two big advantages. First, there's no incentive for the doctor to do more than he has to do. In fact, he wants to do less now. All salaried people would like to do less for the money. And second, you prevent abuse.
Do you have a low opinion of other people in the medical field, doctors?
Not of many of the people in the field. I have low of opinion of the organized profession, which I now no longer call a profession.
What do you do about money?
Oh, first of all, I saved a little because I knew what was coming.
Cheap.
Yeah, and I live cheap, right.
Do you enjoy food or anything?
No, I don't. I don't enjoy good food. I don't enjoy flashy cars. I don't care if I live in a dump. I don't enjoy good clothes. This is the best I've dressed in months.
Tell him how much that suit cost. He's proud of it. How much did that suit cost? It's a genuine Ersatz Armani, isn't it?
Armani, it's an Armani copy, right.
Yeah,
right.
He told me it's genuine. Now,
how much was that suit?
$15.
Who shined that?
$15.
Who shined that suit?
No, it came with this. There was original shine. Right, $15.
I didn't realize that you two were such a team. I can see that. Has this been good for your practice or bad?
Neither. Well, they've gone after me just illegally. They're going after my license because of my defense of Jack.
Did you really seriously worry about going to prison?
No, never. Am I a criminal? The world knows I'm not a criminal. What are they trying to put me in jail for? You've lost common sense in this society because of religious fanaticism and dogma. You're basing your laws and your whole outlook on natural life on mythology. It won't work. That's why you have all these problems in the world. Name them. India, Pakistan, Ireland. Name them. All these problems. They're all religious problems.
You don't seem to feel very strongly about this issue, do you? What do you do for fun, Dr. Kevorkian?
Irritate people.
When was the last time someone remembered your name, your preference for wine, or that you like your sea bass blackened and your prime rib rare? When was the last time the only difficult choice was steel drums or string quartet? And when was the last time you celebrated all night just because it's Tuesday? Holland's America line. It's time.
I'm dead. I'm dead.
I'm dead.
Dead?
I got 47 boxes to ship out by tonight.
Easy. FedEx shipping software. It's just point, click, and ship.
Really?
Bramwell thinks I'm working my tail off. Just point, click, and ship. Take a long lunch. Point, click, and ship. Play a little golf. Point, click, ship.
FedEx shipping software is so easy. Just point, click, and ship from your own computer.
Mr. Bramwell. I'm dead.
You're dead.
I'm dead.
You are really, really dead.
For free shipping software, call FedEx.
There are those among us with very simple tastes. They only want the best.
And for them, there's Fancy Feast gourmet cat food. Exceptionally moist and delicious. Fancy Feast. Good taste is easy to recognize.
Announcing Goodyear's Race Days Tire Sale. Save up to 25% on all Goodyear Eagles and all Goodyear Wranglers. Other Goodyear tires from $19.99. Get to Goodyear and save. And ask about Infinite Tread with a lifetime Tread Life limited warranty.
It wouldn't be 60 Minutes without a few minutes with Andy Rooney. But tonight, as you just saw, we asked him to expand those few minutes in a different role. Suffice it to say, next week he'll be back where he always was, doing what he always did. Tonight, Molly Ivins and P.J. O'Rourke look at pundits, the people your mother used to call know-it-alls. Here are Ivins and O'Rourke, O'Rourke and Ivins.
Doesn't it make you sick when some pompous political pundit predicts who's going to win an election that's months down the road? And did political pundits get into the prognostication business? A pundit's job used to be cutting through the gobbledygook to explain what politicians are doing, as in they're raising your taxes or they're cutting Medicare. Only the horoscope and Gene Dixon predicted the future. But now any commentator with a good toot feels free to pose as the Book of Revelations. Any Sunday morning you can find some television sage saying, well, Sam, Cokie, George, what's next? It's not as though their scorecards were anything to brag about. George Will wrote a column saying the Berlin Wall would never come down the day the Berlin Wall came down. The Wall Street Journal told us the beauty of deregulating savings and loans is that these solutions will be so cheap. Now, I've managed to look dumb without making predictions. I once wrote that Ross Perot makes more than $1 million a year. Turns out he makes $1 million a day. He called collect to complain. I feel a prediction coming on right now, PJ. A whole bunch of stuff nobody expects to happen will happen between now and Election Day. And a whole bunch of predicting pundits will be left looking like they need to study up to pass for half-wits.
You are giving away the ranch, Molly. You're going to wreck our careers. We're never wrong. Well, sometimes we're premature, and sometimes we're OTBE'd, overtaken by events, but not wrong. Life is wrong, the world is wrong, and the public, whoa, can they be wrong? I remember how many pundits said so when Reagan was elected, and when Congress went Republican in 1994, I thought Cokie Roberts was going to cry. Nope, everything we say has to be true. We're on TV. And Molly, I'm surprised at you discrediting the pundit profession. I thought that having an intellectual vanguard was at the core of liberal philosophy. People wouldn't know what to think if it weren't for us pundits. Education, for instance. People probably think their kids should learn to read and write. We pundits know the purpose of education is self-esteem and condom use. In a lot of government programs, it looked like pouring sand down a rat hole if we weren't around to explain how much self-esteem the rats would lose if they didn't get their sand. Seriously, Molly, as pundits, it's actually our job to be wrong. It makes people feel better, like when contestants on Jeopardy miss the really obvious answers, or when I read an Eleanor Clift column. This is because what we do is entertainment. If we were real reporters, we'd have news. World to end tomorrow, that's news. World to end tomorrow, poor and minorities hardest hit, that's being a pundit.
And now the mail. About Leslie's story last week from Saddam Hussein's Iraq, we heard from UN Ambassador Madeleine Albright, who wanted to make sure that no one had misunderstood her position on the sanctions that have been imposed against that country and what they're doing to the children of Iraq. She wrote, "No one wants a solution to this tragedy more than I do. The unfortunate truth is that the UN Security Council cares more about the people of Iraq than their own ruler does. The solution lies with Saddam Hussein. He has to stop holding his people hostage and accept the oil for food plan the UN has offered him." I'm Steve Croft. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes.